Good morning. It is Tuesday, and we are back again at Black Cherry. And today we're talking grape leaves. So this is their whole grape leaf section right behind me. And I wanted to kind of talk about grape leaves in general because I did a little research because I had to learn my history for today's show. And grape leaves were first starting to be cultivated about 8,000 years ago in the Mesopotamia Mediterranean region. And the first recorded writings of using grape leaves happened in 353 BCE with Alexander the Great. So there were some writings about when Alexander the Great invaded and the area of Thebes, that he left their area decimated, that they only had little bits of meat left, and in order to make a meal out of the little bits of meat to conserve, they would cut them into tiny pieces and then they would roll them in grape leaves. So that's the first instance of grape leaves being used as a dolma kind of meal. And the word dolma actually does not mean stuffed grape leaves. The word dolma comes from the Turkish word dolmak, which means to fill. So dolma actually means all different kinds of vegetables that are filled. So you can use peppers, you can use tomatoes, you can use squash, you can use eggplant. So dolma is the term that kind of refers to all of the stuffed vegetable genre. Sarma is comes from the root Turkish word sarmak, which means to roll. So stuffed grape leaves, if you see it in a restaurant over in Turkey, it's going to be called sarma, or people are going to say, "I'm making sarma," dolma. So that's the difference between like a stuffed vegetable, which is a dolma, or a sarma, which is rolled in a leaf kind of thing. So as I was doing research on grape leaves, I realized they have a freaking amount of vitamins and nutrients that you need in your body every day. How cool is that? So it has one serving of stuffed grape leaves provides 77% of your vitamin A for the day. There's magnesium, there's iron, there's vitamin C, and there's fiber. So all of those together are create this nice nutrient rich kind of little morsel, which you just can't get enough of because that's kind of my weakness. The other thing I decided to read up on is the difference between the leaves that you gather and you use rather than the ones that you don't. Because when I was growing up, I remember asking my mom, how do you tell the different, grape leaves to use? And she said that my grandmother used to say there was a certain kind of grape leaves that you use that had the white back of the leaf. So that was the old wives' tale that my grandmother used to say, is that you only use the variety with the white back and they weren't too tough and too fibrous. Other things that I've been reading is that I had no idea, but in order to get grapes from a grapevine, you need both a male vine and a female vine. So if you just have a male vine, then that's not going to produce fruit. You need a female vine to kind of intersplice to make the fruit. When you start looking at why or how you would gather wild grape leaves, the choice that most people say is to go find wild grapevines and wild grapevines that don't have fruit. So I guess if you kind of go by default, you're looking for the male leaves of the grape leaves, and those are the ones that have like the 3 points rather than the 5 points. At least that's what I've read. And what I've also read is that if you're going to harvest the grape leaves and you're going to save them, get the medium-sized ones, not the small ones, not the big ones. Get the medium-sized ones so they're not too fibrous. And if you're going to freeze them, just layer them on top of each other, wrap them in plastic wrap, put them in a freezer bag, and stick them in the freezer. The story that I read was that the grandmother used to put them in a shoebox in the freezer so that they wouldn't get smushed. So I have no idea if freezing grape leaves in a shoebox, works better than other ways. You'll have to let me know. So that is the research that I've done on grape leaves history. Oh, one other thing. Stuffed grape leaves were a favorite in the Ottoman Empire with the sultans. So they started originally being made in the palaces for the sultans as a delicacy. And then it wasn't until the 17th century that like everybody else started to do them. They used to just be a delicacy in the Topkapi Palace for the sultans for their meals. On to the different brands. There's quite a few brands behind me, as you can see. I do have my favorite. We'll save that for last. I have to say, I know you're not supposed to have a favorite child. I have a favorite Grapleaves child, okay? So let's see. We have, this is the Orlando one. And they have, let's see, other kinds. Now, as you can see, they're kind of heavy. You could use these in weightlifting for your exercises. But they have a ton stuffed in the jar. All of them. They stuff them. And it's really tricky, in my experience, to get them out. So they have that brand. They have the Sadaf brand. These look like bigger ones. I haven't tried these. So I'll have to try these sometime and let you know these are new. My favorite ones are this brand. Remember this brand. It is the Alafia. And the reason why I like this brand, I've tried all the other ones except for the Sadaf, is that they're easy to get out of the jar. So when you open a jar of Grapleaves, there's 4 rolls with Grapleaves all rolled up. And all those rolls are stuffed. Let's see if I can you see how there's like 4 rolls all stuffed, or is there too much glare? I don't know if there's too much glare. But anyway, in my experience, some of the other brands, when you drain the water and you go to pull out those rolls of Grapleaves, it's really hard to get your hands in, and you have to twist, and sometimes you end up shredding the ends of the leaves just trying to pull them out. And it's very frustrating because then you end up with tattered ends on your leaves. This particular one I like for a couple of reasons. One, I can drain it really easily. 2, they don't fill it completely full with Grapleaves. They have a nice balance between just enough Grapleaves and just enough brine to kind of keep them floating inside. So what you do is you open up the jar, you drain it, you kind of push it down, you get all of the brine out. And this particular brand, you can easily just twist these out. And that makes it so much more enjoyable to extract them from the jar. The other thing that I like about this brand is that the ends, the stems are all snipped off. So these other brands here, the Orlando ones, you have to not only struggle to get them out, but then you have to de-stem all of them. Now, they do have all similar sizes of Grapleaves in here, so they're all that medium size. So if that's what you're looking for is consistency and size, then maybe spending the extra time to snip off the ends is worth it for you. That is not worth it for me. I save a half an hour to 40 minutes snipping, with not having to snip off those things by going to that other brand. So the other thing I like about this brand is that they're all pretty consistent and they're not torn, but they do have different sizes. So you are going to have some bigger ones, you're going to have some smaller ones, you're going to have some baby ones, but it all is a way more enjoyable process to roll Grapleaves when you use these. So those are the ones that I like. Now, there's other things you can use. Did you know that back in the day, they didn't just use Grapleaves, but they used, in Alexander's time, they used fig leaves and mulberry leaves. We don't really do that so much anymore because they're a little bit tough, but we do cabbage. So they have cabbage leaves already done because you don't need to go cuckoo like I did when I tried to do, keep cabbage leaves. They have small jar, they have big jar. So as a side story of how tricky cabbage leaves can be, let me share my crazy experience from when I was first married. And I had never had stuffed cabbage leaves because I always do the Grapleaves. My ex-husband loved the meat stuffed cabbage leaves. And I said, you know what? I am a newlywed and I'm going to make him whatever he wants. And so I got my cookbook out, and the cookbook said, get a head of cabbage. But it did not say what color cabbage. Now, as you all know, I like color and I gravitate through color. So given the choice of a red cabbage or a green cabbage, can you tell which cabbage I chose? The red cabbage. Let's just say it was a little bit of a purple nightmare by the end because you have to slice it and blanch it, and the purple dye got everywhere, and needless to say, threw the whole damn thing out. Once I realized what kind of cabbage, I had to research what kind of cabbage it is if I was going to replicate it over here. And the cabbage that really works best if you're going to get a head of cabbage is the Savoy cabbage, because the leaves are a little bit more fine and it doesn't have that big, what is that, stalky thing that you have to cut out in the middle of the cabbage. The problem with our cabbages here is that they're too small. So I remember going to the market here and looking for the Savoy cabbage, and they're just this big, right? And then I remember going to my ex-mother-in-law at the time, and I said, so I don't understand how you can stuff the cabbages. The leaves are too small. Will you show me what kind of cabbage? Well, you go to the farmer's market, and the cabbages are like this big. Their heads are like, whoo, huge. So I understand now why they just grow bigger cabbages. We tend to, have a tendency to not grow as big cabbages. If you're going to grow cabbage this year, save a couple and get them really big, so then you can use them for your own stuffed cabbage. Don't do the red cabbage. It's very, very bad. I learned the hard way. Cleaning all that red cabbage dye off of my white counter and everything was a bit of a nightmare. So this sets us up for Sunday. So Sunday we are doing cooking with Kahve, and we are going to be stuffing stuffed grape leaves all together if you join me. It's going to be a while. We're going to be online cooking the rice and the onions and all that stuff, and then taking the leaves out of the jar and then blanching them and then rolling them and cooking them. So it's a day. So you're welcome to come spend the day with me online, because I'm going to be doing it anyway. So if you have any questions, you can certainly email me at kahvecafeslc@gmail.com. You can text me. You know how to find me. And that's it for today. I will see you Sunday.